Okay.
Boa tarde, pessoal.
All right. Good afternoon, everyone.
Prazer estar aqui com vocês. Agradeço
Huge
demais
pleasure
a
to be
presença.
with all of you here. Thank you
tema
for
que a gente vai
coming.
tratar aqui
So the subject, as you've seen,
em
it's
segurança cibernética.
basically
tema que a gente
cyber
começou a tratar já há
security
muito tempo,
simulation. It's something that
eu
we've
trouxe
been
aqui
working
pra
for
fazer a
quite
apresentação
some
junto
time,
comigo,
and that's why I decided to bring
Henrique
Enrique here
da FEBRABAN,
to share the stage with
trabalha com
me. He's from
laboratório
FEBRABAN.
de
He works
segurança
in the
cibernética da
cybersecurity
FEBRABAN.
lab from FEBRABAN.
Nós já estamos trabalhando
And
juntos
we have been
há
working
quase
for
6 anos,
quite some
quer
time,
dizer,
almost
estamos no
6
sexto ano
years now. It's
que
our
esse
6th
laboratório
year
funciona.
that the lab
E
has
tenho
been
muito orgulho que o
working,
laboratório
and
de
I'm
segurança
truly
cibernética
proud
da
that the
FEBRABAN
cybersecurity
é um
lab from
laboratório que
FEBRABAN
trata da
is a
segurança
lab that
cibernética
deals with
em uma das
cybersecurity
infraestruturas
in an
mais
infrastructure
complexas e
that is one of the most
sofisticadas do mundo
complex and
de
sophisticated in
finanças,
the
né? O
world
Brasil
of
ele
finance.
ocupa uma posição de
Brazil
destaque do
holds a
setor
very
financeiro.
proeminent
Certamente,
position in the
obviamente, a
financial
segurança
sector, and
cibernética é
most
ponto
definitely
de extrema importância
cybersecurity
e a
is a
gente tem
very
muita
important
satisfação de
matter.
estar
So we are
trabalhando junto
very
nesse
happy to be
laboratório.
working here in
Eu vou
this
começar aqui a
lab together.
apresentação e a gente
So
a ideia a
let
gente
me
vai fazer em
start my
conjunto, nós
presentation.
vamos
The idea is
trocar
that we'll be talking here almost at
lugar
the
de
same
fala
time,
de vez em
sharing
quando.
the presentation from
O
now and then.
objetivo aqui
And again, the
só
objective,
como contexto, né?
just to
Realizar
give you
simulações é
some
importante.
context, to
Antes a
perform
gente sabia
simulations
que
is
realizar
important.
simulações é importante.
First of all,
Antes até de antes,
before we go into this, way before,
não se sabia que
we
as
weren't very
simulações eram
sure
tão
if the
importantes assim no
simulations
caso de
were
segurança
there
cibernética.
important,
E
especially when it
hoje é
comes to
como materializar a
cybersecurity.
importância
And now, how
em
do we
em ações
materialize
mais
the
concretas.
importance in more
Esse é o
concrete
objetivo aqui.
actions? So this is the objective and the
Fazer
goal today.
simulação
So to perform and have the simulations
não é uma
here
coisa
in
nova,
reality,
a gente
it's
vai
not
passar sobre
something
isso,
new.
mas
We'll
só
be
para
talking
começar
more
com o
about it.
contexto
But just to give you some
situação,
more context
e eu
of
não vou
where we
gastar
are
muito
right
tempo,
now,
porque
and I
vocês
promise I will be brief.
O Brasil é um dos países mais
Brazil is
digitalizados
one of the
do
most
mundo.
digitalized countries in
Somente,
the world.
né, somente agora no segundo
So now on the second
trimestre
the second
de
quarter
24,
from the second quarter
o
alone from
crescimento de ataques
2024,
cibernéticos
the
foi
growth
muito
in
alto. Vocês
cybersecurity
veem isso na
attacks
mídia o tempo
grew a
inteiro.
lot. You've probably seen that on the media
Quantidade de
as
ataques
well. The
cibernéticos. A gente
amount
já
of
sabe que
attacks that's been
a
happening,
maior parte
and we
dos
know
ataques
that most of these
eles são
cybersecurity
explorando
attacks,
o
cybernetics
ser humano.
attacks, has
É
been
problema muito mais de
exploring the
comportamento,
human
ou
being.
seja, do
So
ponto
it's
de
more
vista de
when it comes to the
tecnologia,
behavioral, because on the
tem uma
technology
importância
side
grande.
of it,
Obviamente, a
there
gente
is
precisa ter as ferramentas de
an importance. Of course, you need to know
mas
the
do ponto de
tools,
vista de
but on the
comportamento,
point of view
eu
of the
poderia dizer para
behavior is
vocês
more
com
important. I
sem
can
medo de
definitely
errar
tell you
que
with 100%
muito mais
certainty
importante do que
that more
tecnologia é
important
saber
than
usar aquela
technology is
determinada
to know how
tecnologia
to use
adequadamente.
that technology
E a gente,
well.
no caso de um ataque cibernético,
And
também
in the case
precisa
of
estar
a
preparado
cybersecurity
para
attack,
reagir
we
adequadamente.
need to be
Às
prepared
vezes,
to
a reação ao
react
ataque
accordingly.
cibernético
Sometimes the reaction
ela
to those attacks
desproporcional
is
com
a bit
relação ao próprio ataque,
unproportional when it
e
comes to
você
the
pode
attack
provocar
itself.
dano
And by
muito
doing
maior
that,
do que o
you can
esperado
do even
por aquele
more
atacante.
damage than what was
Ou
expected
seja,
by the
em outras
attacker.
palavras, uma
In other
reação
words,
inadequada
a
muito
inadequate
pior
reaction may
do
be
que uma,
even
obviamente,
worse
né, do que uma
than
reação
obviously
mais correta. E os
more
profissionais de
correct
segurança, eles
answer.
sabem
And
o que eles
the
precisam fazer,
cybersecurity professionals, do
eles
they
estão
know
um
what to
passo à
do?
frente dos hackers.
Are
Todos
they
os atores
one
da
step ahead of the
empresa sabem
hackers?
o que tem que
Is
fazer.
everyone at the
Outra
agents
coisa
of
que
the companies
acontece muito
know
em
what to
segurança
do?
cibernética
So it's important to remember
com
that
relação
what
a
also
se
happens
você
a lot in
sabe o que você tem que
cybersecurity
fazer.
is if you
Na
know
hora de
what you're
ataque
doing and
cibernético,
know what to do. When it
se
comes
você
to an attack, for example,
deixar para improvisar,
if you
você vai errar. E não é
improvise,
só
you
em
most
ataque
likely make a
cibernético, né?
mistake.
Na
Not only
vida,
when it comes to
em toda a nossa
cybersecurity,
vida,
right? In
se a
our
gente não
lives
se
as well.
preparar
If
para
you're
uma
not
coisa que a gente
prepared for
sabe que
something,
vai
if you don't get
acontecer,
prepared for
a
something that you
probabilidade de
know
dar
is
errado
going
é
to
muito
happen,
grande.
the probability of things going sour is
E esse negócio de
definitely
simulação
huge. So when it comes to
não é uma
simulations
novidade,
like this,
ou
this
seja,
is not something new.
Como eu falei, né, o preparo é
Like I said,
importantíssimo.
being
Mas, por exemplo,
prepared is
pega
truly
pilotos de
important.
aeronave.
For example,
Eles
let's get
usam
some
simulador,
aircraft
eles
pilots.
fazem,
They go into the simulators,
simulações de voo.
they do flight
Os bombeiros
simulations
fazem
all the
os
time.
exercícios de
Firefighters
incêndio.
often go
A gente sabe que isso mudou
do their
muito,
drills as
melhorou
well,
muito
and we know that by
a
doing
quantidade
those
de danos com
simulations and
incêndios,
drills, it improved a lot.
médicos, etc.
Doctors
Todo
as
mundo
well,
precisa
everybody,
fazer,
every profession needs
simulação
to
e tá
go for some
preparado.
sort of drill, some sort of
E aí a pergunta é,
simulation
por
to
que
be
a gente não
ready.
faz isso
So
em
the question
segurança
is, why
cibernética?
don't we do that when it comes to
Existem
cybersecurity?
ferramentas.
I mean, we
A gente
have
aqui
the
vai mostrar pra
tools, and
vocês
we are going
uma
to
dessas
show you, by the way,
ferramentas. Não é só
one
uma
of those
ferramenta, é uma
tools,
abordagem
not only
de
a tool, but
simulação,
a approach
bastante
to the
efetiva
simulation
e
that is
eficiente
truly
para
effective
que
and assertive so that everybody is ready for something, for when attack happens. Yes, please, Fábio. Yes, we talk a lot about cybernetics attacks. It is not only simulations, it's also techniques. We want to have our technical team, but all the management, all the board needs to know how they would react to that kind of scenario. Sometimes we might be confused that's very technical, but not necessarily. We'll be exploring more about it later. Right, we'll be talking more about that later on. What I'm telling you right now, this has started for some time. We have been working with different simulations, I think, for over 10 years now. Truly, it's been like 13, 14 years that we've been doing this here in Brazil. And now we're getting this technology overseas. Are there other solutions, other companies doing simulations? Yes, there are, but there are very few, especially using this hyper-realistic simulation technique. And this has been bringing a lot of good and positive results for cybersecurity. Just for curiosity, when I built the slide, by the way, I used the simulations from Varic, simulator from Varic there, here on the top right, on the top bottom right, DC-10. That was my first job. When I left technical school, I was working on the maintenance of this simulator. At that time, the DC-10 simulator, and I know because I was there, I was quite young, but I was there. A pilot suffered a heart attack inside the simulator. The pilot even he actually ended up dying. Just so you see the level of, the critical level that you need to take for that professional to actually go into a heart attack, it's quite serious because he's dealing with like 100, 200 lives when he's flying a plane. So I'm bringing you an example. The simulations are not new. This is from 1978. By the way, at that time it was analog, big analog computer, very old technology, completely different from now. Even as an example, when you have the quantum computers, when they show up, there you see a huge leap, right? Because when we have the leap from analog to digital was huge when it comes to processing capacity. And now we're seeing that happening again quite soon. And I mentioned quantum computers, by the way, on purpose, because really soon, not sure when, it's pretty sure that our enemy will have access to the technology of quantum computers. And me, even though I don't have it, I need to be able to protect myself in a case of an attack that comes from a quantum technology. I don't know how to answer you, like how I'll do it, but I need to test it. I need to exercise it to see if I am protected against the technology of that level. People say that with quantum technology, pretty much any cryptography can be hacked unless it can be decoded, unless you're using a very special algorithm, right? So if I have a data now that cannot be leaked in any way, I need to protect it in a different manner. I need to find a way, even to shut down the access of TCP/IP access to it. I don't know, but we need to think of it and we need to simulate it. And to simulate is also to get an answer, is to know if people are ready, right, to discuss about this, to answer the public when it comes to these attacks. It's important to test that out as well. Of course, yes. And now, again, if you guys want to go visit our stand, it's right here behind the stage. We have a demo going of our simulator, and that simulator that was built here in Brazil, it's called CIMOC. It began being built in 2011 for the Brazilian military that is responsible for the cyber security when it comes to the nation level cybersecurity defense here in Brazil. And we built there precisely to be able to improve our cybernetic defenses in the case of an eventual cybernetic attack. At that time, 2009, almost 15 years ago, something like that, we used to talk about cybernetic security, cybersecurity. Not so much, but we were already foreseeing that in the future, wars could be cybernetic, or it could have a cybernetic component to it. And now we see that it's real, right? We don't even need to tell you. You've been seeing the war between Ukraine and Russia, and you see there's a level of cybernetics involved that is absurd. So this simulator was built on that. From that time, now we have had over 20,000 trained professionals with the simulators, and we had over 2,500 simulations performed in the lab that we have from FEBRABAN, by the way. And again, with this simulator, Ju also likes to say that it's a Brazilian technology. We're very proud of it. We have been exporting this. We have very important projects abroad. And let me move on a bit faster, right? Otherwise, we won't have time. Okay, so I think it's best if you guys go see it later on this on our stand. But this is just so you see how we built it, because you can create hyper-realistic scenarios. For example, you can create any sort of cybernetic environment in this simulator. You can install the different applications, the real applications that would take place, and then you can simulate both for training purposes, training, for example, different technical professionals, also predictive and answer to accidents, and also against to the contingency plan, or according to the plan that you guys wrote, and you're expecting that those agents know how to react to it. There are different ways to do it without using the simulator. Of course, with the tabletops, you can do that in a presentation. But can you imagine if you're trying to teach somebody how to swim by telling them to move their arms like that and move your arm like this, without putting that person on the pool? It's difficult, right? So by using the simulator like this is a silly example, I know, but this is just for you to know that you can do exactly what you need to do and be able to do it on the real time. And what's cool about it is the flexibility you have on the tool as well. It's almost you had a whiteboard and you can put it anything you wanted, right? You can get closer to the structure that you want to train your people on it. It can be a system that you have on your own company and create a system that is very similar to your real and to your reality. Yes, perfect. And Hickey, by the way, if I had to tell you to choose a characteristic, or the most important characteristics of the simulator, it is the ability to change the scenario. For example, to have the what if in English, right? The term what if. You can create situations very quickly. Let's say I removed this router and put this router over there, changed the router position, I changed the software, let's see what happens. I changed the protection level of this agent with that one, what happens? So you can create the scenario and change the scenarios very dynamically. Now again, according to the simulator, you can definitely go to our stand and look more about it, but there are three types of trainings: technical training, corporate training, and safety trainings. And especially the safety and security trainings, now there are a lot of companies doing the safety tests. It's not from the financial industry, but let me give you an example from the processes industry. I can simulate an attack in an environment that cannot be attacked. For example, let's say I have an oil platform. I cannot do tests in a cybernetics platform of oil, because otherwise I could even explode that oil rig or platform without even wanting it, right? So this is unreal. It's impossible. You cannot do that. There's standards in place. There are different regulations in place as well, different frameworks that does not allow you to do that. But in a simulator, I can do that in a very realistic manner, and then also maybe change a few things and even fix the real system and train on doing that through the simulator. So Henrique will be talking more about cybernetic crisis simulation. And again, I invite you to come to our stage. We have a demo going for a simulation of a cybernetic crisis room. You can choose a role there. You can choose to be the SISO. You can choose to be the safety analyst, or you can be somebody specialist in fraud. And then you're going to go through different questions and answer some questions and what's the best way to react and all of that. Obviously, it's just a demo. But you can imagine that when we do this for a company, we want to do it with the right processes and the plans from and the agents from that company. We have a lot of different cases when it comes to technical training. We have been working with Senai, the National Services for Industrial Learning. I've been working there for quite some time. I don't know if you know, but here in Brazil, it's important to mention that in Brazil, there's a gap for professionals in cybersecurity in almost 300,000, 400,000 professionals. It's truly a huge gap. And what does that entail? It's because the turnover is very high for cybernetics team, which is bad. We are not being able to supply the needs of security on the Brazilian market, because the demand is truly higher than the offer, the supply, and we need to train a lot of people. So Senai right now is doing a lot of trainings with different youngsters. RNP as well, the National Research Network, has a program called Good Hackers. The Good Hackers has the goal to train 30,000 people, and we are training all those people using the simulators. So there's truly a need to train people, and for that we have several different places like this training other professionals. And another thing is that by training with simulators, and I think I read that in an article, it's actually 5 or 6 times faster than a training in a regular classroom. So these workshops definitely speed up the trainings of professionals.
Another thing that we do, we get a team of software very big and a big turnover. These training sessions with gamers, in this simulator, we can also work with games. And this somehow works like retention of these professionals. These professionals feel appreciated, they evolve, they take training sessions, they like it a lot. I like to invite you as well. Tomorrow, we are having a CTF at FEBRABAN. CTF is like a capture the flag game with the main hackers, good hackers in the financial area. In a competition, someone will win that competition, and the competition is sophisticated, is really realistic, they really like it. We have been doing it for 6 years already. Tomorrow we are having one here. From 3 to 5 p.m. BRT, there will be a competition here at the booth. It lasts 2 hours. 2 hours this time, yeah. A case, this is the final case that I have for you, because it's important. This is the war game. Cybernetic Guardian is an exercise that I don't know if you are familiar. Some of you are. This is an exercise that we do in the Defense Ministry. Cybernetic Command is a joint command. That is a command with the 3 branches. We have the Marine, Army, and the Air Force. This is a joint command in Brazil. Cybernetic Defense Command runs this exercise every year, and we are part of it, of all of them. We are part of all of them. There will be one in September again. It was this exercise that we get to know. FEBRABAN started working with them in 2021. 2019, it was before that, 2019, and then the pandemic hit. The only year that we did not have the presentation, and since then we have been working with FEBRABAN because of the Cybernetic Guardian exercise. This exercise has more than 1,000 people, around 120, 100 companies from different sectors: electric, telecom, transport, water. It lasts a week, and it's the biggest exercise in the Southern Hemisphere. Maybe I have never seen the statistics, the second biggest in the world. The biggest in the world is at OTAN level, an ATO, and this biggest one, Brazil is part, and the foreigners come to participate in the Cybernetic Guardian as well. And now Henrique will present CyberLab at FEBRABAN. Thank you. Feel free to interrupt me at any point. I just have a piece of comment. Ask questions. We are going to finish before the time to make room for Q&A. We were thinking about this presentation to talk more about the simulation, how we did this in the past, the awareness, and try to convey in a practice way and implement this in your institutions. This is one example of what we do with Insight Lab, and what we are thinking about these scenarios for people and banking to be part, and also motivate you to do something similar in your companies. We have the 5 stages of the lab. On your right, we have innovation, in charge cybersecurity and innovation. We see in this exhibit quantum computing, artificial intelligence, all these topics, and cybersecurity. How about it? Is it safe or not? We are going to explore innovation topics, standardization, outsourcing, risks, cybernetic intelligence, and incidents, and finally, these 2 pillars that are connected to this presentation: training sessions qualifying the employees, remote and in-person training sessions for the employees of banks and partners, and the simulation that we are going to deep dive. We train what we exercise with theory and bring it so it should be tested. So we realize that in theory is something, but when you put things into practice, you see the difference, you see if it's better, and there is more reality during the simulation. Simulation in the Cyber Lab, we have 3 stages. 2 are more technical ones, and a third that is managerial. Starting with the CTF, capture the flag. CTF is qualify and train the employees in different scenarios that we face for gamification, and he said before, but the idea is to form teams, 3 or 4 people from different institutions or the same institution, to train different scenarios on cybersecurity that we propose. And war game is the same thing, but instead of the teams practicing based on the same scenario, they're going to attack and defend from other teams. And the objective is to train the offensive and defensive. How can the employees think about it, how they can attack their own structure, and that's the objective. But the main objective is to train technical teams in competition and collaboration. Using gamification, we bring it up. And something that he said before, professional games, we need to train all the employees. It's not possible to do it without simulation. You need to develop this idea, what's really going on, and try to qualify the employees, bringing the mindset. And finally, we call GCC, Cybernetic Crisis Management Center. You put up a scenario. We have technical teams trying to respond to an incident that scale beyond technical. It's a cyber crisis for the institution and also for the system. For example, what happens if peak stops, not only in a single institution or more institutions? What happens if we explore a platform that everybody uses? For example, PlugBR. We simulate this. I will explain how we think, but this is a scenario for the technical team to work it, seeking information that your strategic team needs to respond to that, and exercise this team on how they can respond as an institution and financial system, to exercise the 2 aspects, the technical and strategic aspect. Next slides, we have the structure of the reasoning in these scenarios. So when we think about technical scenarios, we consider the main vulnerabilities that we have, what I would like my team to be aware of. Not only CVS, but also train and see how it shows in your system, so you can show them what to do and exercise the mindset. So the attacker is thinking as a defense and offensive side. How can I defend my institution? Think about the systems. You can place different systems in the CMOC, but the idea is to bring systems that are critical for your institutions. You train based on it. Maybe you will have limitations. You can train in a simulated environment to be close to the reality. And based on this scenario, we are thinking about Intratec and TTPs, procedures and technical techniques. If I am part of a financial system, I observe the players that attack the finance. Are they getting in this door, or there is another entry point in my institution? I have to observe and customize the scenario. We are going to talk about financial system. If I am retailing, is the entry point the same? Maybe it's not, but the idea is to bear in mind, because the idea is to exercise what is closest to the reality. When we elaborate the scenario, you consider it all. In this case, I'll talk about strategic scenarios. In addition to these points, we also think about services that are external to my institution. We had simulations with peaks. What happens if I try to run out the limit of search in peaks? What happens with the system? Do they know what to do when this happens? The consequences that it will bring for my institution and the financial system? Also GovBR. That is a case, okay, if the attacker simulate one access with your identity, but when it loses authentication, they see your computer in their system, they put the token. What might happen then? We think in different services that may be part of the scenario to be closest to the reality. In addition to that, we are thinking about some simulations in the financial system. Isn't it another scenario? Financial system and energy system, and also financial system and also telecom. So similar to cybernetic guardian, rocket shields they do at NATO, but expanding beyond the financial system. And of course, after that, we see the technical aspects, and the type of incidents we want to work is ransom, information leak, coming from different attack sources. Is something sophisticated, or it's something hacktivism as we call it? Everything will change the current scenario. And here, as a suggestion to try to do something similar, we have 3 points. For CTF and WarGame technical aspect, you cannot do something internally. But if you do not do internally, motivate the technical team to be part of it. We realize when we exchange experience among the participants, everything gets better. I cannot develop a technical scenario. People can exchange ideas and experience to be better qualified, and they know who is behind the computer to ask for help when necessary. Cybernetic crisis, in this case, at FEBRABAN, we have the CCCs with different institutions, but we see there is a big value when we do this inside the institution, because you can train your team, the technicians, but especially the strategic team. You propose a scenario. There's no need of machines. Even in paper, you can do it. But bring a proposal scenario that could be crisis. And it's nice to see when you organize this in home with a small team organizing, and people do not know, it's closer to the reality. And later on, you can explain it was a simulation, but it's something that adds value. And we see this unfolding after the simulation at FEBRABAN. It's very nice. Not only the technical aspect, you also talk about the culture of cybersecurity. Cyber goes beyond security. IT is present in all the organization. You can test phishing without shaming on the person who got caught in phishing, just to qualify the team that are susceptible to that. And finally, social engineering. What if I bring someone that is inside my institution as an employee? You can exercise and foster the security culture in your institution. And finally, some steps. It requires validation. We work this way. I would like to motivate you to put up propositions and design objectives. Objectives have a good result when you can do this in home, and design the scenarios, the technologies that are necessary, and finally, the approval part.
I think we're almost done. We're able to finish on time at least. And just as a final message that I'd like to tell you all is that we really tried here to convey the importance of the tool that we have, the simulation process, the tool to perform the simulation, how to do it. We even shared you a success history. We have been doing that for 6 years. Everybody involved from FEBRABAN is truly responsible for all of this, very special. And once again, there's no service, no digital service that is safe. It's impossible. If you put something live, a digital service, if you make it live that is not safe, you're basically making something that is not good available. That is awful. That remember me when at the time we used to talk about quality, like we cannot sell something that doesn't have a good quality. It's almost the same, and even goes a bit beyond than that, because I think there's no service nowadays that is not digital in a way. Everything that you do nowadays, you're relying on computer, relying on IP, relying to be connected somehow. On the financial sector, then it's absurd, right? The digitalization that has gone on the financing sector is insane. So, once again, I'd like to thank FEBRABAN for the opportunity to be here, and Enrique as well for coming here today for the presentation.